It's beautiful outside right now. Besides the smoke. Anyways, I'm going to finish my coffee and then we're going to plant some potatoes. Last year, you guys may or may not know, if you've been on this channel long enough, you do know, I grew some ginormous potatoes and you all asked me how I did it. So we're gonna look at exactly what needs to be done to grow ginormous potatoes. Some things you do want, some things you don't want, depth, soil, etc. and so forth. So let's get into it. Okay, so first things first is the actual potatoes themselves. These ones are seed potatoes. These ones are from last year's harvest. So I did save some of them. We actually didn't eat all of them either. Now the difference between the two is that seed potatoes are guaranteed to be disease-free and they also have been cared for, meaning they haven't been allowed to grow these leggy arms and legs that you may find with potatoes you saved from your own garden. Now what I will say is you can use your old potatoes from your garden so long as you had no signs of blight from the year before. That is very important. If you have had any signs of potato blight, do not reseed these potatoes. And if you want to be particularly safe, just use seed potatoes from the store. Always your best bet when in doubt. Now, one thing I do not do is cut. So some people will actually cut this potato in half, for example, and then seed it. Now, if you cut a potato, say I was to cut this in half, because you definitely could based on the number of eyes, you want to make sure that you allow the potato to cure, meaning the fleshy the starchy inside. You want to allow that to dry and scab over before actually putting it in the ground. So if you're going to cut, usually do it a week, 3 days to a week before you're actually going to pop it in the ground. Now, secondly is chitting the potatoes. So seed potatoes come looking like this. Maybe they have a couple eyes going. This is partially chitted. I don't find this to be like a particularly good chit in any way, shape, or form. This is ideal chitting. So I've got kind of like a ton of little octopus tentacles all over. This is ideal. And this would be considered too long and gangly. So this one happens when there's not enough light and it's grown in a dark space, or it's allowed to chit in a very dark space. So that's what happens here. This will happen if you have it generally in a cupboard is where I do this in. So if I have a cupboard that I go into once a day, allow some light in, this is kind of how you get this really nice chitting. The other thing you could do is pop them in a Rubbermaid, drill some holes in the top, and that would be enough light to allow for this sort of chit. And then this chitting is just what it comes from the bag, the actual bag itself. So ideal world, they'll all look like this. Now, like I said, I don't cut these, I do just toss these in the ground. So let me show you what the soil looks like now. So the key with potatoes is, or any root vegetables, that's how I grow all my root vegetables to substantial size, is actually making sure that it is very, very floofy, very, very loose. Now, we're going through a drought here in Saskatchewan. We have been for about 2 years. Then likely this is going to be our 3rd year of drought. And so the soil is also very dry. I will be watering it immediately after actually planting. But when I take a spade to this, I can very easily sink my spade in and I will plant to a spade's depth. That is very truly important. And then I will pack it up around it. Once I start seeing leaves, I will mound the soil back over top. So my spacing for these, particularly because I don't cut them, combined with the fact that I need enough soil to then mound, is pretty far. I like to go about 2 feet apart to give me the soil I need, but also give the plants the space. Loose, fluffy soil is the key here. It's not organic material. It's not necessarily even fertilizer, nothing like that. This is just regular soil that's very fluffified. So yes, it is tilled. I know it's a very horrible word, but it is tilled. It's a clay loam. So without tillage, if I was to do like a no dig, it'd be very hard soil. And to grow potatoes in this, if I was to grow potatoes in this without the tillage, I would do like a straw version, like a roost out method, or something to that effect where I'm planting on the soil surface, because it's just not, the soil's just not ideal for growing potatoes if it's not tilled out. So I would keep that in mind if you're, growing in similar soil to this. If you're finding that not tilling is resulting in like really hard packed soil where you stick the spade in, you pull a soil to the side and it kind of is aggregated and it's not really falling apart, if you will, then I would just skip growing the potatoes in the ground, and I would go with like a root stoth or a straw bale method. That's what's going to work best in this scenario. But if you are willing to till, then I would go in ground with the potatoes and you'll see really, really good results. But like I said, minimum spades depth, really, really deep for these taters, and you'll see really awesome results. Now the ones with the longer noodles, I guess, on them, the tubers, the longer tubers, I'll be breaking some of those off. It's a bit excessive. Keep in mind though, when they get that long of tubers, that you are running a little bit of a risk of the potatoes themselves lacking enough starch to get going, because they put so much work into those roots, if you will, already. And so if you're going to cut them or remove them, just keep that in mind. If there doesn't look like there's much potato left to begin with, you may want to just leave them intact, and you just might not get as great of a yield. Ideal world, it's that red potato type vibe is kind of what you're going for chitting. So my worry is that if we are going through a drought year, then I'm worried that my potatoes just aren't going to produce very much, which is highly plausible. I mean, they're under irrigation, but I'm not out here all the time. So that's kind of like where I'm a little bit nervous about it, but that's all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. What'd you say about garden centers, Grandma?
I like a garden center.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh, yeah. And what, you should never be brought to one?
You should never bring me to one, actually.
Oh,
you know better.
Why is that?
I don't know.
You would just spend too much money here.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.